Subhodayam to all. Today, under this topic, social maladies and spiritual remedies, I will be talking about hyperwealthism, a deadly disease that affects mankind in modern society. This talk is not intended to hurt or humiliate anybody, but purely to provide insight into a social disorder that endangers nature and mankind. We all know about physical diseases like diabetes, cancer, obesity, which primarily affect our physical bodies. But there also exist many social maladies which affect us as individuals and communities and which simulate the physical diseases. Unfortunately, despite their more widespread and evil consequences, many social disorders are considered as good things in modern society. And people are being encouraged to acquire those evil disorders. And one such disorder is hyperwealthism. Now, what is hyperwealthism? As the name indicates, it is a disorder caused by accumulation of excess wealth by an individual. This is very similar to obesity. We all know what is obesity. It is accumulation of excess fat in our body. Basically, consumption of more food than what is needed for one's body results in obesity. Similarly, acquiring more wealth than what is needed for one's daily living results in hyperwealthism. We can also call that disorder as pocket obesity or financial obesity or social obesity. We know what happens when we eat excess food or consume excess calories daily. Our body converts that excess calories into fat and stores that under the skin and other places. But that excess calories offer us no advantage whatsoever except making us look very big and fatty. Despite lot of fat and energy reserves, we still feel hungry when we starve. In fact, we feel more hungry than people who are lean and who have no fat reserves. So the excess fat we stored offers no comfort to us in times of famine, rather adds to the suffering. And it puts more stress on our heart and liver. Same thing happens with accumulation of wealth. See, our body never feels happy to spend its fat stores even when it has 200 kilograms of fat inside the body. It demands food intake daily. Similarly, our mind will never be happy to live upon old earnings. Even the top billionaires of the world would feel miserable when they lose their regular income. What keeps us happy is the money we earn today and not what we have earned or accumulated before. Of course, the body does utilize the fat stores when forced to do, but it experiences a lot of pain. Likewise, we may live upon our old earnings when forced to, but we won't be happy. We experience a lot of mental pain if we have to live upon our old earnings. The point to understand here is, like our fat stores, our hard-earned assets and wealth neither keep us happy in our daily life, nor they take away the suffering in times of adversity. But we keep aspiring to earn more and accumulate loads of wealth, expecting that it would do miracles to us in our life. Now, what do our Shastras tell us about how much to earn? Here is a great sloka from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yavad bhriyeta jataram tavat swatvam hi dehinam adhikam yobhimanyeta sasteno dandamarhati. One is entitled to keep only as much wealth as is necessary to fill one's stomach. One who accumulates more is a thief and he deserves punishment as such. You may ask, what is wrong if I earn more? After all, I am working hard and I am earning more. You may argue. but even thieves work hard as they steal things. We need to remember that all our earnings and livelihood ultimately come from the nature, and that nature belongs to everybody. You and I have no right to harvest more and store that in our backyard. We need to be judicious and as we harvest nature and make our living. By our acts of greed, we should not deplete the nature of its resources and endanger the ecosystem and our fellow beings. We keep hearing about the world billionaires donating generously and helping the poor. And we also aspire to get rich like them and help the poor. It sounds great. But let's not think superficially and create more trouble. As spiritual minds, we should think beyond the obvious and beyond what the materialist can see. Actually, there is something called poverty in this world because some people have got rich. Some people have taken from this nature more than their share and deprived others of their chances. If we stop being greedy and stop extracting the nature more, then all will get their livelihood easily and freely. Once upon a time, people got fresh air, fresh water, fresh food literally for free. Nowadays, forget about the fresh ones. We are paying even for the spoiled food, polluted water, and we know about the quality of air we are breathing now. The problem is not of population or scarcity of resources. The problem is greed. Out of greed, people have harvested nature much more than their needs, and in the process, depleted the nature, destroyed the ecosystem, and polluted the environment. If people remain wise and judicious in utilizing the natural resources, the planet can support even 100 times the present population. But if we are greedy and ignorant, even 2 of us on earth can turn disasters to the planet. So, preserving the ecosystem is the biggest help that anyone can do to mankind, and the best way of doing that is extract less from nature and replenish more, like what our rishis did. Making billions of money by destroying the nature and giving peanuts to poor to exhibit our superiority is not charity but cheating. So don't get inspired by the world billionaires. They do no good to themselves nor to the society. If making money was really such a great and useful thing, our Maharshis would have grabbed the entire wealth on this planet for the intelligence and the powers they possessed. Our Maharshis knew it is performing yajna or acts of sacrifice which sustains life and not grabbing stuff and keeping that in their pocket. With acts of sacrifice, nature gets pleased and gives us all that we desire for happy living. Unfortunately, people out of greed are just competing for everything with no sense and inclination for sacrifice. Obviously, there will be shortage of resources and there will be poverty when greed overtakes need. Nowadays, everybody, whether it is a businessman, doctor, engineer, or a politician, everybody's mind is occupied with just one thing: how to earn more. And with that morbid preoccupation, people work hard 24/7, and they often pose themselves as karma yogis. Here is a sloka from Srimad Bhagavatam which comments about people who work hard to make money. People who constantly hanker to earn money and apply it for sense gratification bring about the destruction of everyone's interests. To earn our livelihood, it is recommended that we work for just 6 to 8 hours a day at the max. One who works more than that not only harms oneself but also the environment. Now, what are we supposed to do for the rest of the day? Well, actually, there are many prescribed duties which people have forgotten in their eagerness to make money. Interaction with family and children, service of old people at home, most important duty but totally neglected. Next, devotional activities, charity work. Then, of course, we have to spend time for ourselves, self-care, spiritual practice, yoga sadhana, like that. If we follow the dharma, it will take care of all our needs. But if we abandon our dharma for the sake of high salaries and top jobs, we will surely suffer despite all the material possessions and luxuries. Now coming back to our topic, what are the consequences of accumulating too much of wealth? Well, they fall into three categories. Effects on nature, on society, on individual. First, people by accumulating wealth, they deplete nature of its resources and endanger ecosystem, and they create artificial scarcity and poverty in the society. We have already talked about these evil effects. Next, the exhibitionism of the rich brews jealousy and unwarranted competition among people. See, people are not happy just being rich. They want to exhibit in various ways. Costly cars, costly houses, costly food, costumes, gadgets, massive gatherings, etc. This exhibitionism brews jealousy, frustration among the poor who lack those extravaganza things. We think feeling jealous of others is a bad thing. Of course it is, but making people jealous by our demonic possessions and behavior is evil. See, our Maharshis lived a simple and happy life which made no one feel jealous. And despite their simplicity, they lived in ecstasy all the time. They experienced the highest happiness. We should aspire for that kind of divine happiness. Our happiness should flow to the people around us and not make them jealous. Our luxury lifestyles, overindulgence, exhibitionism may offer us temporary demonic happiness, but they disturb the social harmony, endanger nature, and they do no real good to us in the long run. And here are other consequences of hyperwealthism: technology dependency, decreased human interaction, decreased physical activity, and which leads to body obesity. And finally, as people slog day and night to earn more, they miss the real joy in life. So they feel depressed and frustrated in old age. So hyperwealthism prevention, you need to be intelligent to get rich, but you need to be even more intelligent not to get rich. The latter requires a deeper understanding about nature and life. Unlike the body obesity, financial obesity or hyperwealthism is a highly infectious and contagious disease. See, when we eat food, we just eat to fill our tummy. We are not bothered how much others eat. We don't compare or compete with them. But when we see people who earn more than us, we start comparing and competing with them. And our hunger for money grows enormously. We start working hard and we acquire the deadly disease called hyperwealthism. As is always the case, prevention is better than cure. Choose the right company of people. We need to realize that it is not good to earn more than what we need for the day. Of course, many of us are earning much more than what we need. We may not suddenly overcome that weakness, but at least we should accept that as our weakness. Let us stop boasting about our high incomes, rather feel ashamed of making so much money. I know people are worried about their future old age diseases. But like obesity, overwealth never protects us but only predisposes to more problems and diseases. See, basically living the right way protects us from most diseases. And if we follow the right path, our kids will also follow that and they look after us when we get old. Nothing is a luxury in old age than having the company and the support of children and grandchildren. So it is raising the children in the right path, not acquiring loads of wealth which helps us in our old age. We see so many millionaires living pathetic lives for lack of affection and care in their old age. Many parents nowadays think that they don't want to burden their children. See, if children are happy, that's enough. They don't need to look after us in our old age. Many of us think like this. But it is children's duty to look after their old parents. It is their dharma. As a rule, who abandons dharma can't live happily. So make your children serve you in your old age if you really want them to be happy. If children refuse to serve you, that is their karma. But as parents, we must give them the opportunity to carry out their rightful duties. Yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukhaha. Moderation is the key to happy living and is the treatment of choice for both physical obesity and financial obesity. But to practice that, we need to be in the right environment and with the right people. So be part of satsangs, listen to spiritual discourses, realize that we have surplus funds, enjoy the freedom that comes with that awareness, stop competing for more, rather engage in sacrificing acts and charity works. But be critical of what you are doing. This is Kali Yuga, and 90% of the harm to the society is occurring in the name of service and charity. And remember, wealth is like medicine. You shouldn't simply throw that away indiscriminately. Rather, be a caretaker and dispense very carefully to the really needy people. Most people are financially obese, but they don't realize that they just compare with others and think that they are poor. It's like the obese claiming themselves as underweight by comparing them with the super obese. There is a rule in finance and management sector. 90% of a project or a task can be accomplished with just 10% of effort. But finishing the remaining 10% of the project takes 90% of our effort. A similar sounding but different rule applies to life. People nowadays are slogging day and night, constantly worried about their future. But if they put 10% of that effort and follow the dharma, they can avoid 90% of the problems in their life and they can live life much more happily. Basically, by following the Shastra Dharma, we can avoid 90% of the problems in our life. But what about the 10%? How to avoid them? Well, we need to realize that life will never be totally free of problems. Krishna advises to Arjuna that problems exist in life and they are temporary, like the heat and cold of summer and winter. So we have to learn to accept and bear with the 10% problems. But people in their anxiety to avoid those 10% suffering, they are crossing the dharma and in the process buying 90% of the problems. I would conclude my talk with the following sloka from Ishopanishad. Ishavashya midam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tiktena bhunjida magrodha kasya siddhanam. Everything that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Supreme Lord. So enjoy that with a sense of gratitude and devotion without being greedy or unduly attached. Thank you very much.